Welcome to Life Picks Relationships, helping you understand and enliven your marriage through the various perspectives and experiences of others who found a way to prioritize what's really important in life. From new love to those that have weathered the storms, let's get ready to take your relationships to the next level with your host, ST.
Hey, Life Fixers, are you ready to understand your marriage even better today? I am super excited for today's guest. But before I tell you about today's guest, I have a question for you. Are you looking for ways to improve your marriage but got no time? I made something just for you. Genius Relationships. Learn from experts at your convenience. Go to geniusrelationships.com now. Links will be in the show notes. You'll be so glad that you took action today, because in 4 weeks' time, your relationship is going to be in a different place. Now, today's guest has been in the Army 20 years as a mental health medic. While he was there, he went and trained to become a licensed marriage and family therapist, and then left and now has been running his own private practice. I'm going to tell you the story that you're just going to love him before I even bring him on. A couple of years back, his wife said she wants to get a king bed, and he said, no, he doesn't want one because all his clients have king beds and they're just not in a good place. So she was like, excuse me, prove it to me. You know what? If that's what you say, then prove it to me. And he went and he did his research. He asked a whole bunch of people, did a survey on finding out how happy they are in their marriage, how their marriage is going, and what size bed they have. And what he found out was it doesn't matter what size bed you have. It matters if you go to sleep at the same time. Think about it, okay? If you have a queen bed and you and your partner go to sleep at different times, then if you're sleeping ready or you're in bed or whatever, then you could feel your partner come in the bed, and then you have to align accordingly. Even if you're in your sleep, you don't realize about it. You don't think about it so consciously. Maybe they do wake you up, but hopefully you're just getting realigned. If it's in a king bed and you go to sleep at different times, then you don't feel it. Their bed's big enough that you don't feel it. So you move out of alignment. So as long as you're going to bed at the same time, then you could realign. It doesn't make a difference what size bed you have. Now, thank you so much, Dave Jenkins, for being here. I am super excited. You want to start by telling us your worst dating story?
The worst dating story I'll tell you was finding a young lady that I was interested in, and she went to church with me. And so I mustered up the courage to ask her out to prom. And so she said, yes, I'd love to go to prom. However, when it came to going to prom a week beforehand, her parents told her no. And so she didn't tell me until the day before prom she couldn't go with me. And so I was devastated, and needless to say, did not attend prom that year. But later on, when I was talking to a few friends about it, another young lady said, you should have told me. I wanted to go with you. And I was thinking, well, I didn't know you were interested either. So while that turned out horrible, I also discovered another kindred spirit that I had enjoyed her company for a few months after that.
That's fun. Okay. So now we want to tell us, what is mind mapping?
Mind mapping is the ability to intuit what's going on with someone else, more or less wanting to know what their desires are. And interestingly enough, mind mapping is that ability when you walk into a room and you realize when the room is quiet, what's going on. Something else is here. Mind mapping, there are two animals that can fairly accurately mind map humans. One of them is a dog. And most people assume cats, but I'm going to tell you, cats don't care about humans. Cats think they own humans.
Oh, yeah.
So the other animal that can mind map humans really well and know us emotionally are horses.
Ooh, my favorite animal.
Yes, that's why we use them for equine therapy. They can really map out, whether or not a human is calm or whether or not we're settled or whether or not we're pretty solid on who we are. And so if animals can map us out, other humans are fairly decent at mapping out each other as well.
Okay, so what is it? What are these animals doing? What are other people doing to us when they're mind mapping us?
So observation. Let me give you an example. For example, if I call my wife on the phone and I say I'm having a conversation, immediately she'll say, "What's wrong?" Now, how is it she knows something wrong? And I didn't say anything was wrong, but she knows by the tone of my voice, by mapping my patterns, she knows my typical traits. And I could lie and be like, "Oh, nothing's wrong." But she's going to look at me and be like, "I know there's something wrong." So we can go down the road of you lying to me, or you could just be honest. So we can do that by visual, but we can also do it by auditory. And so we're really good on picking up on when something is wrong or right. It is a survival trait that we all humans have. It's, in the military, when I was in the Army, we used to call it situational awareness.
Yeah, it's like picking up those subconscious or non-spoken, like the nonverbal cues that we have. Do you find that people who have a higher EQ are better at this?
I love that particular question because it's not always a matter of emotional intelligence. Sometimes people, I'm gonna tell you, the really best mind mappers are the ones that fake like they're not really mapping you.
Yeah.
These are the
They know
men.
everything about you.
Yes. Yes. So we might think we have a higher emotional intelligence than they do, but they are the ones mapping us out and have us pinpointed. And I'll tell you, being a therapist, I know my clients map me better than I map myself. It's just the way it goes. It's survival. So it's not a matter of emotional intelligence. It's a matter of, if I grew up in a traumatic household, or versus if I grew up in a household that's calm, we sat down, we had dinner together, we had calm conversations, my mind mapping ability is fairly decent. However, if I grew up in a household full of chaos, what do you think my mind mapping abilities are like? They're off the charts because my survival's at stake. And so most of the time when folks come into therapy, they might not always have had the most calm backgrounds or, environments. And so they're really good at mapping out, what's going on here, or are you really for real? Those individuals, they look at you and they think, you're fake, or is this real? They're good at
Or
it.
they don't believe anything until you really prove it to them.
Exactly. You're spot on the money. And what I often tell many therapists that I coach, I said, don't try and prove anything to your clients, but be willing to call them out when you need to. Because if you can call out someone that's been mapping you, they know you're mapping them.
Yeah. Now, okay, so we understand the concept of what mind mapping is, which by the way, I think kids are really, really good at this, no?
Mind mapping starts earlier than most parents are afraid to admit, which is scary. I remind parents that mind mapping actually starts as early as 3 weeks old, believe it or not. Think about it. A 3-week-old has a rudimentary smile and then they wait. And now they begin to track, ooh, you smiled back. And we got the game of peekaboo. So the reflexive smile starts there. But at about 18 months old, an 18-month-old can tell whether or not its care provider cares for them or not, which is very scary. And most people say, well, who wouldn't care for an 18-month-old? Oh, just read the news. There's a lot of people that don't. A 2-year-old can tell whether or not their care provider likes someone else or not.
Ooh, that's where the jealousy comes in.
Yes. And a 4-year-old, believe it or not, a 4-year-old can tell whether or not their care provider is lying to them or are straightforward, which is
Are,
scary.
are you
And they,
serious?
yes, they can tell the difference between whether or not mom is being for real or playing a game in fantasy. The game of peekaboo helps with this one. And now here's a scary one. I love watching 5-year-olds. They begin to test your reality as a parent. And they do this by, in my family, we used to call it, they're telling stories. They will lie and wait and see if you catch them. And then most parents say, and then they go, how did you know? You see, lying, it takes a lot of sophistication to lie because you have to say something other people might believe, but you can only say it to the people you're assuming that's going to track you. But if your parents track you, oh, they got me. Now, here's the scariest part of all. An 11-year-old has the mind mapping ability of an adult.
So once you're 11, that's it.
Well, they're just not sophisticated enough to call you out. But this is why at a teenager, will begin to look at you and they give you that side eye, like, really? Okay. And many parents that are getting ready to go through a divorce, they're saying, well, we didn't tell our kids yet, and we don't think they know. And I say, how old are your kids? They go, oh, they're about 9, 10, and 11. They know. They know.
You know, way before.
Yes, absolutely. And so I encourage my clients to really be authentic rather than trying to beat around the bush or lie, or just be straight up and say, that's not something I'm willing to talk about at the moment.
Yeah. Now you're giving all these statistics, but at a certain point, do some people have better mind mapping skills than other ones? Right. Like you said, if came from a traumatic home, then obviously it's different. So once it
Yeah,
comes to adult and marriage.
I love it. And so oftentimes we can have really good honed mind mapping ability to specific individuals, and we could be mind blind to other individuals. You're out on that date and your mother says, I don't like him. And everybody in their family, they don't like the guy you're dating, but you say, what's wrong with him? There's nothing wrong with him. Until afterwards, then you go, yeah, got it. You could be mind blind. So do we get better? Well, here's the thing. Mind mapping, we can track other people, but that doesn't always mean we're accurate. It's just a clue that something's going on that we might be missing. And sometimes it's a clue that, oh, there's something going on. I see it, but I refuse to see it. And so we can ignore lots of signs until later on. And so it's very fascinating to watch it happen, especially in a married couple when one's trying to manage the other one's impression of them. They're trying not to hurt their feelings, and so they withhold information, and the other one already knows it, and they're trying to call them out, but they think, if I'm honest, then I don't want to hurt them, and if I hurt them, they're not going to like me. And so we practice impression management. Being the new guy on the job. I know when I was first new on the job, it's like, oh, you read the environment in your workplace, and you realize, do I say this? Do I do this? What's the social norms? Mind mapping. We all do it.
Right. Okay. So now once we get these clues from our partner from mind mapping them, how could we use it to benefit the relationship, to improve the relationship?
I love that question because the benefit is when we actually become solid in who we are as individuals, as opposed to trying to bend ourselves to meet someone else's expectation of us. When we do that, we actually violate our own integrity. And people that violate their integrity, we don't sleep well at night. And the thing is, imagine if I am willing to violate my integrity, my partner can map that out. Now, does my partner's respect of me go up or go down? You got it. My partner's respect for me will go down if I'm willing to violate my integrity. So that's how we sabotage our own relationship when we act out of a way trying to manage our partner. However, if I'm solid and I am who I am, that right there gains begrudging respect. Let me give you an example. You may have had this argument. Where do you want to eat it tonight? I don't know. Where do you want to eat it tonight? I'll eat wherever you want to eat. Well, no, you decide. No, you decide. Well, you see, let me explain what that argument is all about. I'm going to translate because I hear this all the time. In essence, it's this. I don't want to make a decision that's going to piss you off or be the wrong decision. So you make the decision so you could be the bad guy just in case we go to the wrong place. Then I can blame you.
Right?
That involves mind mapping all day long.
Yeah.
But the clean way approach from integrity is like this. Hey, I'm interested in eating Chinese. Would you like to join me? And then the other person can say, well, I'm not really interested in Chinese, but I am interested in Mexican. Can we do Mexican? Well, I can do Mexican. Let's do it. You see, when you have something to bring to the table, you can start and pivot from there. But when you have nothing to bring to the table, you bring frustration all day long.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And many relationships, they withhold and do not bring their A game to the table.
Yeah. Now, what's so important in this part is that safe space that you have in that relationship, because if it's not there, then none of this really works. how do we go and make sure that it's safe at all times? Because even if like most times you do, but like this topic doesn't and just shuts down my partner, or like, what can you do to really make that safe environment?
I love your question. It's a nice assumption, but I'm gonna reveal my bias.
Okay.
'Cause,
Let's hear it.
there's no such thing as seeing a non-biased therapist, by the way. We're all full of bias. I
That you're
just have
not a
to put mine out
non-biased
front.
person, is it possible?
Right, right. So I'm going to say this: being married or being in love or being in a relationship is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the weak. And actually, I don't believe there is such a thing as safety as saying the right thing. What you're saying essentially is, can I say something and receive my partner's validation? No, you can't always receive your partner's validation or approval. But if I'm on the other side and I realize you're seeking my approval or my validation, and I'm a little angry with you, guess all I have to do to hold you hostage? I just have to withhold. So, is there a safe place in a marriage? Mm-mm. There is a marriages are risky about being who you are as an individual, and so often we are told to deny ourselves or lose ourselves. And you'll hear people at the end of a relationship, they'll say something to the effect of this: I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm just so lost. I got to go find myself. The problem is when you start trying to accommodate another person by setting the expectation of safe, or I'll validate anything you say, you start to violate your integrity and lose chunks and pieces of who you are. And so I encourage couples in the beginning not to be rude, not to be arrogant, but to be open and honest and to say, I'm not really interested in that. However, here's what I am interested in. And it's not about setting the expectation of being unsafe, or I'm going to say the opposite, being dangerous, but it is risky to love somebody.
It is. I'm going to agree with you on that. However, and I don't think that if your partner agrees with you on everything, then they're not being themselves. So you don't want that. However, when I'm saying safe, I'm saying like, some people will just attack you for saying that. Your partner doesn't have to agree with you, but you shouldn't be put down for wanting to be yourself. So even if usually you feel safe, I find that sometimes in couples, they have, let's say, money, or
Yes,
like they have
yes.
specific things that like, as soon as they go into that, there's just like, no, I won't use the word safety, but like they can't even be open and they can't even listen to each other.
I love it. Those are called gridlock issues. Gridlock issues cause a lot of fights in relationships. Why? Because I want my way. And my partner, she wants her way, whatever it may be. And so if you follow John Gottman talks a lot about gridlock issues. And these are the issues, that causes couples to really go at it and create friction. Now, in his research, he finds that, couples only agree on about one third of their issues, which is not a lot. Now, I can do math. That tells me they're disagreeing on two-thirds, which also runs right along with I've always said, opposites have a way of attracting. And so if I am polar opposite of my wife on spending money, and she is polar opposite and she likes to save money, how do I get my way? Well, some people will resort to manipulation or gaslighting, or trying to make a move on one another. So your question was, how do I recognize that and make it safe for me? Appropriate boundaries. How do I put down my foot? I don't know what you're going to do, but here's what I'm planning on doing. And it's not a matter of I'm blackmailing you to do what I do, but I intend to do this. Let me give you an example just to put it into action. Um, I want to go see the Marvel action movie that's coming out. My wife says, well, I'm not really interested in that. Well, no problem. I'm planning on seeing it. I'll say, well, how dare you go see that without me? Uh, can you? That's just not right. You're forcing me to go see this movie. I'm not forcing you to see the movie, but I plan on seeing the movie. You can join me if you like to. So you see, whenever we have gridlock issues, whether it be how we're going to present things, spend money, most people get locked in and they'll say, well, this affects the both of us. It can if you're emotionally fused. And there are
Yeah.
a lot of couples that are joined at the hip and emotionally fused. And when their partner does something different, they interpret that as, you must not love me. Well, I do love you, and I'm going to see the movie.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think it's just important to mention, like, some people will look at that and say that's passive aggressive, but no, I think it's more, like you said, it's not emotionally charged, and you're just realizing that you can't control your partner. If your partner
Yes.
doesn't want to come with you to the movie, so you go by yourself, you'll have fun by yourself, and it'll be fun, but you're not trying to go and make them do something that you
Right.
wanted them to do.
And that is so difficult to find that balance in a relationship when you love someone. However, I always, I'm going to give you a new term. That's a form of collusion. When you couch it, if you go to this, you must not love me. And there's lots of collusive relationships that, blackmail each other into validating them. And so when I'm in counseling, I help couples recognize here's the collusion you guys are setting. Collusion works great so long as both parties agree to the rules. However, when one of them starts to violate the rules, it has the chance of slipping into a combative alliance, or you can have a collaborative alliance. And so I often, as you can imagine, push my count on my couples into becoming more collaborative. And I'm telling you, it's not easy being collaborative.
What would you suggest to someone who wants to be more collaborative?
So being collaborative, it's about owning your own stuff, and it's about confronting yourself first and not blaming your partner. It's not about taking the victim stance where your partner is, but it's about you necessarily saying, "This is what I need to do for me." I'm not blaming you. I'm not attacking you, but here's where I am. Now, the dilemma with a collaborative stance is, what happens if your partner doesn't reciprocate? Well, reciprocation is often collusion, and your partner may not be ready to reciprocate. Because sometimes your partner will look at you and they'll say, "Is this for real? Let me wait and see. How long is this going to last?" But if you remain consistent, it is for real. And you don't have to prove your integrity, you just have to demonstrate it. Hard
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah, that is really hard to do. Like, you're just saying, like, yeah, so you could control yourself and you're in charge of your stuff and you have to deal with your things and you can't blame your partner. It's all so easy to say, but like when it actually comes to it,
Yes.
it makes it so much harder.
One of the reasons it makes it harder is because the collusion in a relationship holds people hostage. But I often challenge people and ask them, are you a volunteer in this relationship or are you a victim? And the moment you realize we're adults volunteering to spend a life together, that takes on a different meaning.
I
Now,
love
then I get the couple say,
so
"Well, we got
much.
kids." Yes. And then you get the couple to say, "Well, we got kids, so I have to stay together." I said, "Well, you don't have to. You really choose to. It's just a matter of convenience when you do stay together."
Yeah. Sometimes it's better off if you don't stay together. So you can't go and
Yes.
say you have to. Yeah, that is
Yes.
such a good perspective. I like that. I like that so much. I think I'm going to start using it.
It's yours. I have a counterintuitive approach when it comes to relationships. I find that what we think as far as attachment or over attachment is not always the case, because sometimes that comes across as borrowed functioning. I need you to see me the way I see me in order for me to feel good about me. But if you don't, oh boy, I'm going to feel inadequate. And many people's self-esteem is not based on themselves. It's based on how they're seen and perceived by others, which is called others esteem.
Yeah, it really, really, really has to go and start from the inside. If you're not healthy and you're not feeling safe, not safe, I'm not saying that word. If you're not feeling healthy and you don't have that self-esteem coming from the inside, then it's your marriage, your relationship is just not going to work because you're going to have others' esteem.
Yes, I will tell you, there's something that I often say to as a quote, and it's harsh. And it goes a little something like this: people with low self-esteem are dangerous, especially in a marriage.
I like that one. Now, on that topic, I'm just curious, do you think people who are low self-esteem get attracted to each other?
Oh, yeah, I love it because oftentimes, and this comes from Dr. David Snarch. He was one that says that, and also Murray Bowen, people of the same level of maturity are often attracted to each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the problem is this. Oftentimes I say this to my clients and they don't like it when I say this. If you ever want to know how mature you are in this relationship, just look at your partner. And many people take offense to that. They're like, "Wah," because they think they see themselves as more mature. I say, well, you just express it differently. Here's the thing. If I was much more mature than my partner, those relationships self-select out. It looks a little like this. My partner might be a little too clingy, or she might laugh a little too much at my jokes, or she might be a little too aloof. And so those relationships, when they're mismatched, they don't work out over long term. But the ones that really butt heads and create lots of friction, they're almost always evenly matched like a good sparring partner.
Now, what happens when one partner becomes more mature and is growing, another one?
Count on it. And so imagine this. If my partner is going past me, do you think I'm going to cheer them on or sabotage their growth?
I
Oh,
know you
yes.
are.
Yeah. A lot of people they say, I'd like to cheer on my partner, but no, your partner's not a fan of your growth. Because if you
No,
grow, you make me look bad. And so get back here. Oh,
it
how dare
changes
you?
everything. The whole dynamic in the relationship changed.
Yes.
I look bad. I don't know how to relate to you anymore. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do.
Bingo. Yes, and that does happen. And so when it happens, I often remind the one that is doing the growth, operate from a place of humility, not from a place of arrogance and looking down. Arrogance and looking down, that's not true growth. That's not true maturity. True maturity is when you recognize, this is my growth and I can be patient for my partner. I'll explain it this way. Here's a visual analogy. When we walk with one foot at a time. And so I often stand up and walk in my office and I'll demonstrate. I'll say, my whole body is the marriage. My right leg is the husband in this case, and my left leg is the wife. And it doesn't have to be just heterosexual relationship. This also works for homosexual relationships as well. One grows and the other one doesn't. So in this case, I'll use the heterosexual example. So the husband, the right leg, if he has the audacity to grow or walk, he steps forward. Now, as he's stepping forward, guess where all the pressure is? On the left leg where the wife is. And she's like, how dare you? You're going to mess this up. Get back here. I can't believe you're doing that. And so if he wants her to feel better and not hurt her feelings or make her feel unsafe, he'll come back and take on the pressure and be like, okay. So that's collusion. So it takes two people to collude and stay stuck, but it takes one to have the audacity and grow. Now, if you say, well, can't they hop? Yes, you can hop, but hopping is not sustainable. So if we hopping is like overcoming a crisis, death of a loved one, an affair, a sick child. Those kinds of things, couples can hop over and grow together, and they often do. But in this case, let's go with the audacity. The husband says, I'm going to grow. And he takes a step forward. I don't care what you're doing, but I'm growing. Now, in order for the wife to relate to the husband, she'll have to relate to him differently or pull him back. If he remains solid, he'll take on the weight from the wife or the pressure, and she could come along beside him or, in actuality, leapfrog him. Now, I'm gonna tell you, it is so elegant to watch a couple in stride, and they are in harmony because when they walk or grow together, it's not at the same time, but it looks like it's almost at the same time, and they leapfrog each other. And because they mind map one another, they can anticipate the growth and they can anticipate the stride. Now, when they run together, woo, watch out. Nothing can stop that couple.
I like that example so much. It makes it so clear. And yeah, I don't think anyone have ever explained it as well as that, of like taking the pressure of one and one and how like one could go forward and the next one moves up. Yeah,
I
that is
also
just
want to give you
awesome.
that additional visual because the next question might be, well, what happens if one refuses to grow? Well, have you ever seen a person drag their leg behind them? They take a step and they drag. They take a step and they drag. I watch couples do that to each other all the time. One drags them into counseling, drags them into therapy, and then all of a sudden they get the point and they stand on their own 2 feet. Or as they walk, you ever seen a drunk person walk? Yeah, they're unstable. Or a better analogy would be a toddler first learning to keep their balance. Many couples don't know how to keep their balance on their own without borrowed functioning. And so when they toddle or grow, it's off balance. And when they stride, their stride might not be in unison or the same length. Yeah, I'll tell you, I had a leg injury one time, and my stride was off. My right leg was a lot longer than my left leg. So it looked funny as I'm limping along, but I was getting along. Many couples limp along, but they get along.
That was awesome. I like that so much. So now before we get to our final question,
Mhm.
what is one thing you want life pictures to take away?
So I would love like pictures. Actually, I developed something that I snatched from Robert Glover, and it was rules for a relationship. What things that can really help almost all relationships, whether it be coworkers, whether it be work relationships or intimate relationships. There's a couple things that can help it make work well. And so number one, approach the other person as if they are the most open and adventurous person in the world. Even if they're not, approach them as if they are. You give them that benefit. Rule number two, allow the other person to say no when they're uncomfortable or when they don't want something. That respects their boundaries.
Yeah.
Um,
It
and,
goes
and
back to what we were talking about earlier.
you got it. And I'll give you an example how this happens in real life. And rule number three, don't take no as a personal rejection. Oftentimes we take it too personal. And my favorite rule, rule number four, refer back to rule number one. Let me tell you how this works. I go to my wife and I say, hey, honey, I would love for us to go skydiving. Would you like to go with me? Oh my goodness, I can't believe you'd ask me such a thing. You know I'm afraid of heights. Now I'm going to allow her to say no. Oh, okay, no problem. I knew you're afraid of heights, and I won't take that personal. And then rule number three, well, how about hot air ballooning? I'm going to keep coming back to her, not badgering her with the same event, but I'm going to keep approaching her and giving her the first rights of refusal because she's my partner. This also works sexually as well. Hey, honey, how would you like to play dress up Batman and Wonder Woman? Oh, you want to be Batman? Okay. And so you continue to approach each other as if. Well, here's what oftentimes happens with the couples I work with. They say no in their own head on behalf of their partner, thereby robbing their partner of the opportunity, which
Yeah.
then they're mad at their partner and resentful because their partner said no in their head and they didn't even ask their partner.
Yeah.
So
It's like when that realization hits you.
yes. So if your listeners could take that one thing away is to be authentic and to continue approach because they're interested. And it's not taking anything away from their partner. Matter of fact, it's making their partner's life a little bit more richer. But in order to do it, you have to be a little bit brave. Many of us are afraid, but I tell people do it while afraid. Do you recall what doing something while afraid is? It's courage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That is a definition of courage.
yeah.
Doing something while you're afraid. Awesome. Okay. So for our final question, how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, connection, and for you, I'm going to use also courage?
Awesome. So, an extraordinary relationship is respectful. It is recognizing where you end and they begin. It is recognizing the difference between your value system. It may overlap your partner's value system, but you can't impose yours on them. Likewise, you can't allow them to impose their value system on you. The dilemma is the more important the person is, the easier it is for us to violate our own values, thereby cheapening the relationship. So if you can maintain your own solid footing in the presence of someone dear to you, ooh, that's an extraordinary relationship. The saddest thing about a great love story is that it ends.
So true.
Yeah. And so I always tell people don't end it early. Don't sabotage it early. Keep it going as long as you can with mutual respect.
Yes, 100%. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave. This was amazing. All your examples, your visuals, I just love them. I'm going to be keep on referring back to you every time I use all these things and always remember this conversation.
I hope you do. And I'm glad that you resonated with the visuals. I am a visual learner and I try to practice right brain therapy, meaning I'm trying to implant a visual because we're storytelling creatures and they mean a lot to us.
Yeah. And as a visual learner myself, I love it.
Very
Well,
good.
thank
This has
you.
been my pleasure, actually. So thank you, ST. I've really appreciated you.
Thank you so much.
That's all for this episode of Life Picks Relationships, and we have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support this show, but also give others what they need to take their marriage to the next level. We're striving to have 1 million downloads per episode by December 31st, 2025, so please share it with your family and friends so they can turn their relationship into an extraordinary one.